And we're live.
Okay. I'd like to call the meeting to order and acknowledge that we are in Treaty 1 territory, the home and traditional lands of the Anishinaabe, Ojibwe, Innu, Cree, and Dakota peoples, and in the national homeland of the Red River Métis. Our drinking water comes from Shoal Lake Forty First Nation and Treaty 3 territory. My name is Neil Harden. I'm chairing today's panel. With me in live are Ian Mahone and Robert Upton. The recording secretary is Jason Robertson, and the assessor for today's hearing is Matthew Barakis. To the Zoom participants of the hearing, please note that you are placed in a waiting room until your preference is called upon. When it is your turn, you will be admitted into the meeting. Kindly follow along on the City Board Revision YouTube channel for the hearing process. Once the host admits you into the hearing, please close or mute your YouTube player. You will then be permitted to speak with respect to your property. Once your hearing has concluded, you can leave the meeting. We will be hearing applications for revision of the assessment role in accordance with the Municipal Assessment Act. The matter is for which revision is requested has been described in each application, and we will limit discussion to those matters. The statements that are made at this hearing are sworn testimony, and anyone speaking to the matters must be sworn in. Be advised that comparison of assessments of properties are not considered evidence of market value by the board. The board is appointed annually by council and is independent of it in the city administration. It makes its decisions on the basis of the evidence provided at this hearing and issues a written order that will be mailed to all parties as soon as possible. Please note that the board's decisions with respect to an application may be appealed to the Manitoba Municipal Board if the matter pertains to assessed value or classification, or to the Court of King's Bench if the matter pertains to the application of exemptions from taxation. Should you wish to appeal, information how to do so will be included with the board's order. With respect to the hearing process, I will confirm the points of appeal with your property to be addressed with each applicant following the swearing in. We will then have the assessor's testimony followed by questions the applicant may have, and then the applicant's testimony followed by questions. Each side will have an opportunity to summarize if they wish. Once all the evidence about an application has been brought forward, the applicant may leave. The process will repeat for each item on the docket today. The session will close after all the applications have been heard, and the board will deliberate in private and make its decisions. You will receive the board's decision by registered mail as soon as possible. As information, all public hearings are live streamed, recorded, and will be part of the public record. We'll be hearing items 1, 2, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8 on our docket today. Mr. Robertson, can you please affirm the assessor's and applicant's testimony?
Mr. Assessor, please state your full name.
Matthew Stephen Barakis.
Do you affirm that the evidence you are about to give at this hearing is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you. Mr. Applicant, please state your full name.
John Stephen Parsons.
Do you affirm that the evidence you are about to give at this hearing is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. You may be seated.
All right. The first item on today's agenda, the first property is 565 Thames Avenue, and the issue is assessed value. So, Mr. Barakis, you may begin.
Okay, thank you very much. File number 22-728, roll number 14100129785. 365 Thames Avenue. Roll year 2023, reference to April 1st, 2021. Model assessed value was 43,205,000. Classification 20T taxable. Actual year built 1974. We don't have an effective year built on it reflecting any sort of renovations on the property. So I don't have a recommendation on my brief. The applicant and I did talk about their properties today. This is one we weren't able to come to an agreement on. Regardless, in in the discussion and after reviewing his evidence, I'm going to make a recommendation on the property. I'm going to give you the figure and then I'll give you the breakdown and the reasoning why. So the figure I'm making a recommendation to is to 41,660,000 rounded.
Okay.
And then if the reasoning for that, if you would go to my page 8, please.
Okay.
So what you're looking at is this is the most recent mailer submitted to the city. So if you could note this, I use the total income received, which is the 4,721,923. I know it's kind of small. You're gonna have to zoom in. Apologize for that. It's just how it was submitted to us. And then what I did is I took their most recent year expenses and I made 2 changes. I restabilized the management at 5%, as opposed to, I believe it was 5.6%. And then the second change I made was I amended the repair and maintenance figure to $580,772.80. What that is, that's the 5-year average from 2020 going back to 2015. I don't have those mailers in my brief, but the applicant does in theirs. So I felt that it wouldn't be right to just take the low year, which is in the most recent year for repairs and maintenance. So I averaged it. That's why the repair and maintenance is about 150,000 higher. It's about 1,500 a unit at that figure. It's fair. And then I just use our modeled cap of 5.65 to come up with the valuation of 41,660, or sorry, 41,660,000.
What was the NOI that you
the
used?
NOI, the NOI was 2,353,787 and 5 cents for what it's worth.
Okay. All right.
The
Continue.
applicant is requesting you repeat the figure, Mr. Assessor.
For the stabilized net operating income was 2,353,787 and 5 cents. If you like, I also have it worked out on a PDF for you to look at. I can send over, but that would constitute new evidence being submitted. So I don't want to cross any lines here. But if everyone has the figure, we can proceed.
Okay. Yeah, it's your option in terms of recommending a reduction, then we will accept the PDF if you wish to send it. But
Sure, I will send that right now. I figured it because it shows the breakdown. It would be a lot easier that way.
yeah, that way we would have the figures.
Okay, one moment.
If you're going to admit that, because the applicant is a person, I have to make them copies of printout. So if we can take a short.
Okay, sounds good.
Thank you.
Yep.
And we should be live.
All right, Mr. Brackus, you can then continue.
Okay, thanks for bearing with me on that one. I was just reviewing my files, and I felt that even though we didn't come to an agreement, I still felt a reduction was warranted. You have the figures in front of you as I previously described. It just better reflects management on a market basis, but it also jumps the repair and maintenance up quite a bit. You can see historically the repair and maintenance on average has been about 1540 per unit on a 5-year basis. So just taking the most recent year, even though it would support them all the assessment, as a result, I don't think would be a fair representation of the historical performance of the property. So hence the recommendation. I'll just pause there for a second and then you can tell me if I need to keep going after the applicant makes their decision.
Yes, Mr. Parsons, how do you feel about the recommendation?
So just to be clear, you've increased my repair and maintenance $27,000 roughly.
Well, from your brief, yeah, because I know there was that issue with the year not being submitted.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I didn't take that second post reference lower year into consideration, because even though it would have been lower, it's post reference and I can't use it.
Which one's post reference?
The year after the 452,840 mailer R&M. Well, that's again, it's in your brief. I'm sure you'll clarify that when we get there. I know you had like 552 or something, but I didn't include that because I don't have that on file in a mailer, so I don't know where that came from. I'm just.
Which one is that? The 2018?
No, that's the 2000. What you had is 2020, but remember there was that.
Yes, I remember it was 2019, right?
Well, I didn't. You had that listed as 2020, but I think that might be 2021 because if you look at my page 8, the 2020 is 452, and then when I looked at 2019, what on the year previous to that, what you had was 610. So I just went from the 452, which is recorded as a 2020 mailer, and then used your reported figures going backwards. So your repair and maintenance and your stabilization is actually higher, or rather lower. I'm talking about the brief you submitted, not that's all the board has in front of them.
I can't even see this hard.
I have that as the single page on the first applicant's brief that you submitted, if that helps at all.
Just changing glasses so you can see there. So he's okay. So hang on a second. So I don't see where I submitted 2021 numbers here.
Okay, so on your page 17, what you have submitted.
We're kind of getting bogged down here.
Yeah.
We have the repair and maintenance as the city has put it as just under 581,000. Now the question is, I mean, that is higher than the number they previously used, and I think it's higher than the number that the applicant used in their analysis. So the question is, are you willing to accept the value, or do you still wish to contest the record? The applicant's new NOI is, or the assessor's new NOI is closer to the value that you had, but still above it. And the cap rates are still have a difference.
Sorry, I'm not able to hear here. I'm having a hard time hearing through the speakers here.
Try and turn up the volume of the TV. Or, Mr. Chairman, are you able to speak more into the mic? The applicant is having a hard time hearing you.
Okay, I will try doing that. Here, let me remove my earbuds. That might help.
Up the volume on our end too. So
So I'm just hearing a little background fan with this, so.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes, sir.
All right. Looking at the recommendation, the applicant's maintenance has increased. Their NOI has decreased, but there's still a difference in NOIs and a significant difference in cap rates. So do you wish to accept the recommendation, or do you wish to proceed with the hearing on this property?
I'll continue. The cap rate's my concern.
Okay.
Okay, not a problem.
So,
All right, I'll keep going on this one. So on page 2, for everyone, I'll take a break here, a quick break. Page 2 of my brief. You'll see it's the request for income information. You're only going to see 2 years there, even though it's a 73. This was originally there's 3 buildings, and they were originally 3 separate properties. They were merged, so it got a new property identification number, but there has never been an issue prior to the merge or after the merge with them being compliant, so not a problem there. Page 3 shows the model income summary, which I'm no longer supporting, so we'll pass through that. Page 4, the rent comparables, just rents in the neighborhood. Again, I've made a recommendation based on reflecting the income they collected in the most recent year. So therefore, I'm not going to dwell on it too much, but you can see that the model does place an average monthly rent on the property that is in line with competition in the neighborhood. Cap rate chart is on page 5. So what this is a chart of sales that I was able to come up with myself. What I did is I looked through our spreadsheets, and then I looked for properties where we had 3 years of stabilized income, or 3 years of reported income and expense analysis. And then I stabilized the income and expenses over the sale price, and I was able to determine a cap rate on that. There is, this cap rate I submitted this chart. This is from before a couple of these cap rates sales were further investigated. So there's 3 sales I want you to just put an X beside, not consider. The first one is 510 Burnell, because that is an associated sale. So cap rate we're not going to use. And then there are Hemina and Grosvenor. They sold as a package. You can see the sale date is the same. The other cap rates are just fine. They went through land titles. They weren't associated, and the figures were calculated accordingly. Other applicants have pointed out the association and the package nature of the other sales. So in charts going forward, this won't be seen, just the 2-week lag on the evidence submission date. I couldn't go and amend it. Anyways, so you can see cap rates range from below 4% all the way up to 5 3/4. So the cap rate that we're assigning, the 5.65, is within that range. Capitalization rate chart is on page 6. This is the auto-generated chart from the city. You can see in the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5th row down, we have the multifamily rates. We have the 20th percentile going from 4.8% to the 80th percentile at 5.6%. We're at 5.65, so we're at the just outside the upper end of the meat of the distribution on this pro. In regards to the comparing this property to the market. Okay, so and then page 8, income and expense mailer. what I based part of my recommendation on, and then part on the applicant's brief, which we will get to. Then on page 11 onwards are just some pictures I was able to pull off the internet. So some outside pictures and some pictures of the living room and bedroom. For whatever reason, I don't know why they didn't have any pictures of the kitchen or bathroom. They just simply weren't there. I wasn't omitting anything intentionally. So just circling back, my recommendation is 41,660,000 based on the most recent income, 5% effective gross income calculated management, and a 5-year repair and maintenance calculation. That's my evidence. Thank you.
Okay, questions, Mr. Parsons?
Yes, sir. Thank you. So back to just this, I sent out a corrected spreadsheet yesterday that we had worked through. I'm just not sure why that's not being used here.
Oh, well, I don't know what you sent to the board. I have to base the evidence and recommendations based on what you sent to the board. I know we talked about how initially it was noticed that the income was off on this. So I used the most recent income based on the mailer that we have on page 8. And I didn't use that other column because I don't know where that came from. I don't know where those numbers came from.
Which column are we talking about?
The column in your brief, column 2020 in your original submission.
Okay. All right. Yes, I do have other questions, sir. Obviously, property you haven't had obviously the time to go inspect properties.
No, I have not.
And the prod, and you're aware of the location of the property. It's just north of, or just I guess east of Talbot and Watt. And
yeah,
west, okay, it's in the sort of the heart of the Chalmers district.
Yeah. My girlfriend used to live in that area.
Okay, fair enough. The income and value summaries that you provided, all of those numbers in there are all model generated, correct?
For the model, yes, I'm not using the figure anymore, but the cap rate, because that's the primary discussion, that is model generated.
Okay, so just to be clear, all, where this all began, everything is model generated, right? Okay.
Yes, correct.
In the modeling, there was a 5.47% reduction from the last assessment to this assessment. Can you explain why?
I don't have last assessment in my evidence, so I can't review that.
Can you offer an explanation of why an operating expense would be reduced by almost 5.5% from one assessment period to another in general?
Are you talking about from the model or from just an operational site specific?
When I look back at the previous assessment and the current assessment, the reduction in the operating expenses is 5.47%. So the modeling has reduced the assessment by 5.47%. Is there an explanation for that?
I mean, I don't have those figures in front of me. I'm not supporting the modeled assessment, but in regards to your question in general, I don't have an answer.
So looking at your rent comparables here for a minute, if you don't mind, just did some quick calculation. Just a matter of correction to the subject property. It's 2 to 5 buildings here, or 2 to 5 stories. It's actually 5 stories and 3 buildings for you to be corrected that you're in.
Okay.
All right. When I calculated the bachelor and 1-bedroom ratio, it was 60%. The 2-bedroom of the subject property, the 2-bedroom is 33, and the 3-bedroom is 7%. When we look at your comparables, 1-bedrooms for 21 Antrim is 18%. 1150 Monroe is 40%. 1-bedrooms, and Ray Crescent is 26, and then Jamison is doesn't have a 1-bedroom. It's specifically 2 bedrooms. So 60% of the units are bachelors in one bedroom. 56 are actually one bedroom. That would have an effect on potential rent, correct? Would you agree? Like, you mean when you're comparing it to these folks, other folks here?
Yeah, I mean, when I made my recommendation, I basically disregarded these and just made my recommendation based on the actual recorded performance of the property.
Right. And you will let, okay. And then oh, and 1150 Monroe, just for matter of housekeeping here. Their utilities are included in their in the comparable. I included in my rebuttal for your review.
Okay.
Just as a matter of housekeeping there as well. So that would make it that's not an extra to that property for the tenant to pay. Is there, you know, getting back to all of this, and of course we all got here for this, is there any kind of workup? Is there any kind of clarity or on how the modeling develops these capitalization rates, how it develops the income? Is there any transparency to that? Because I'm just, every year I'm here and it's the same questions. How do you arrive at these numbers? I get that you're not using the model at this point, but it is important going forward because these questions are going to get asked in the next hearing.
No, I don't have any sort of formula or breakdown in my evidence, so I can't answer that question.
All right. And what factors would give a property a 3.9% cap rate versus a 5.95 cap rate? What factors would make that determination?
I don't have any breakdown by age, area, and size. I know the model takes into consideration the inventory of the property, as in the age of the property, whether it's been renovated or not, the area it's in, the height of the property. But again, I'm not in modeling. That's all I can tell you. What I can tell you is, because I know I've heard this question a few times over a few seasons. So what I did on my page 5 is I actually went and reviewed sales in the market and did full stabilizations, just like you did in your workup, using the sale price. And it shows that the model is in line with what the actual sales are showing. So, I mean, I don't have a formula. That's not provided to me either, but I did do work to substantiate the numbers the model is kicking out.
How did 700 St. Mary's end up with a 3.6 cap rate?
Well, I had the sale price, and then I did a 3-year stabilization on the income and expenses. You also notice this property is smaller. It's only got 9 suites. When a property is smaller and the price tag is lower relative to other multifamily investments, it allows the smaller investor to have their shot as well at potentially purchasing it. So there's a bigger group of potential purchasers. Increased demand would push the sale price up. Presumably, more people were bidding on it, and that would cause the cap rate to drop.
All right.
Mr. Chair, the applicant is finished with questions.
What's that?
The applicant is finished with his questions.
Oh, okay. All right. Any questions from the panel? Ian?
Yeah, just one with respect to the chart that you have on page 6, the compilation of various cap rates.
Yeah.
The Winnipeg, Colliers, CBRE, and Cushman and Wakefield. I see multifamily, you have the low rise A, and low rise B categorized. There isn't an awful lot of difference in the cap rates, but how would this property be characterized? Or are you aware how this property would be characterized? Would it be low rise A, low rise B, or would it be in the low rise generic?
You know what? I would just put it in low rise generic. I've looked around for low rise A, low rise B. I think that's something other agencies use, and that's just a matter of accounting for what they are reporting. Namely, I think, like you notice, the CBRE has that distinction,
Right.
But Colliers and Cushman don't. I think that's just so we can include what they're saying.
Okay.
I would just call this a low res. I wouldn't give it an A or a B. I don't know what that means really.
Okay, then the low rise generic range goes from the 4.8 to the 6.0 cap rate, in the 60 percentile or 60% that are used.
Well, if you're looking at Colliers, yeah. I mean, we have 4.8 to 4.6. We're at 4.65.
Right.
We're definitely not saying, we're not putting out a weirdly low cap on this one.
Okay, thank you. That's my.
Bob, any questions, Bob?
No, I have no questions. Thank you.
I guess I have no questions that haven't been asked and answered, so you can proceed with your presentation, Mr. Parsons.
So
Now, I understand that there's a spreadsheet that you wish to substitute in your original presentation.
that's correct. I submitted a correction to what Mr. Barakis was referencing earlier. There is a 2019, we're switched into 2020. So I've switched those back. I submitted it, Mr. Barakis, and I had a conversation earlier in the week about these numbers. We couldn't come to an agreement. I think the numbers offered today are actually higher than we discussed previously. And so I submitted a correction to those numbers. There's nothing different about them other than they're in the proper year. So 19 is 19 and 20 is 20.
Okay, Mr. Barakis, do you have any difficulty accepting this as late evidence?
No, because we talked ahead of time. You can talk about it.
Okay,
That's fine.
that's fine. Then proceed, Mr. Parsons.
So before I start my brief, I would like to do a couple of corrections here to that spreadsheet, if you don't mind. I woke up this morning and I think I would like to make some amendments to this because it's in the favor of the city for the most part. And so if you have my spreadsheet and looking at column 4, I can give you some numbers I'd like to address.
One moment. Matthew, did you receive the email with his calculation so you can follow along?
Is this a new one?
Yeah, new one I just fired off.
Okay, let me pull it up.
For evidence.
Okay, right. No, yeah, I have it.
You have that one?
That's fine. Yeah, we can keep going.
So what I would like to do here is plug in a couple of numbers here for you. I'm going to start with column number 4. I'm going to use the city's vacancy at $144,148 in the vacancy. So we're going to replace negative 161,041 with negative 144,148. That will reduce the effective gross income to $4,667,777. I've stabilized all of those. We've chatted about these. There's no issues there, but it does affect the net operating income, which will now be $2,221,461. I've reduced the cap rate to, I believe it's 5.95%, to give a valuation of $37,335,478.
You repeat that number?
I can, 37,335,478.
That's a cap of 5.9.
Yes, sir. Column number 3, I'm just going to make a simple one-time change there. I'm going to reduce my cap rate from 6.1% to 6%, and that will give a new assessed value of $37,384,33. Sorry, let me say again, $37,384,033.
What cap is that?
It's a 6 cap, sir. Yeah, I'm just reducing the cap rate. I've adjusted nothing else. Okay. Everybody clear on the numbers?
Column 3, I got the first one I didn't get.
Well, that's a new application you're making is for 37 million.
Correct.
384.
And I'll get to why there's 2 numbers there in my brief.
Okay, proceed.
Okay.
Thank you. I'm going to start with item number 1, or tab number 1 if you wish. So 365 Thames is 3 buildings, 5 stories, and a masonry exterior is now cladded with metal. 5 Dover elevators that are original. Concrete deck, masonry walls, 2 level parkade structure, 186 indoor, surface parking 177. It's a well-maintained property, electric heat and through wall air conditioning. Corner lot, Elmwood, Johnson, and Levi. So in the heart of Chalmers. There you go. Unapproved apartments, 15 bachelor, 212, 1 bedrooms, 123, 2 bedrooms, 27, 3 bedrooms, as mentioned, 60% are bachelor and 1 bedroom units. Previous capitalization rates have moved from the city's initial proposed capitalization rates between 0.75 and 0.45. So, for example, in 2020, the cap rate moved from 5.3 as submitted by the city using their modeling system to 5.75%, and that's how I
If I can interject a caution here, the board provides no weight on past assessments.
understand.
Since we have no evidence on what those assessments were based on.
I understand, but I will get, this will come out later as well. So the market conditions and potential rent, because of the fact that this building has a large number of 1 bedrooms, rent potential will be somewhat hampered relative to other apartments or comparables that have a higher 2-3 bedroom ratio. Notwithstanding location and mixed concrete block wall, it has balconies and it has a parkade structure. Currently, the building is roughly 50 years old. These concrete structures, balconies, and parkades are high risk because and they're high maintenance items. Currently on Keniston, there's a apartment block that's having its balconies redone, and it's upwards of $40,000 a door, balconies. And there's another one on Queen Street, roughly $35,000 a door. So when establishing a level of risk or concern when purchasing, balconies, parkades are high risk items, especially 50 years later. Even with continuous maintaining, that is a continuous turnover, as concrete is just an ever trying to speak here. It's a never lasting item, so it's always requiring maintenance. Concrete repairs themselves can be upwards of $90 per square foot. And for example, you take a single stall that's 200 square foot, you're looking at $18,000. So it's an expensive operating, very expensive property to operate when you have these type of features. Ultimate risk, the cost of money, public policy, capitalization rates, subject probably meets the threshold for higher cap rates, lower capitalization rates are reserved for better quality properties. So I would suggest without balconies, without parkades, it's just surface parking. I gave you the calculations for the I'm submitting here that the valuation. So I've submitted those to you, 37,384,033 and 37,335,78. So I will get to why those two numbers are there. Page 1.2 is an exterior look of the property. And again, it's located in the Johnson Interchange, Stadacona. There's a picture of the top of the parkade with surface parking. Parkade door, 5.1 are balconies. In that, what's interesting about this balcony, the reason I took this picture, you can see the amount of balcony work by the differential colors in the paint. So that is why I say to you is that balconies are a big number, a big item, and a concern when purchasing. For example, a building has come for sale here in Winnipeg. First thing I thought was balconies and parkade because it's on Portage Avenue there. So anyways, 1.6 standard bathroom, standard kitchen. Kitchen again, unimproved. We maintained the standard, the existing cabinetry, paint, got a little bit of wood trim to modernize them a little bit, but existing 1974 cabinetry. Just a living room photo here. Another living room photo through from another angle with the access to the balcony and a through wall air conditioner. Small bedroom, a little larger bedroom with glass doors, a master unit, and then a second unit on 1.9. Dining room on 1.10 at the top, and another angle photo at the bottom of 110 of the kitchen. In this case, we installed a dishwasher in this one. It's a 3-bedroom, but that's the only one of them, and there's only a few of these. So that's about the only modernization that this kitchen has seen because it's still existing cabinetry. My tab 2, well, we'll skip through that because we've already addressed the initial spreadsheet. Tab 3, just at 3.0, I just like to make you aware that property knowledge, principles of appraisal here. These are all items that affect cap rate, risk, and concerns for would-be owners. Each person has their tolerance. One of the things I would really like to point out to you is nearly 5 or 6 items off the bottom of that that top column is the asbestos containing materials. Any building built about 1985 and older towards 1930 will have asbestos containing material in the drywall, the seams, the ceiling, and corners, inside corners, outside corners, joints, and ceilings. To abate a ceiling in an apartment, a 2-bedroom apartment, is roughly $7,000, and this isn't something that's optional anymore. This requires a type 3 removal and is extraordinarily expensive, but it is what it is. So hence why there's an elevated risk to these older properties, not just balconies, not just parkades, but now the maintenance and repair of the property. And if you're wanting to, for example, renovate an old property, this is a very, very big concern. So then we go down to cost of purchases. You can go through that there. You can see that there are additional costs and then risks, the potential for income, repositioning costs, economics, location. And I would suggest to you 365 Thames is not necessarily the best located property in the heart of Elmwood / Chalmers area. Cap rates play into decisions, but really they're about the ability to pay the bills. So finally, a return on the investment and a return of the investment. 3.1, you can see there is a crime map from the city of Winnipeg. It's got a 5-year average starting in 18, 19, 20, 21. Sure, there was a dip, but you can see that there is quite a bit of crime in that area, and that does affect us. Not our problem, but our headache. You know, and so when somebody leaves something in a car, it's broken into somehow, you know, that becomes the offsetting. We become the outlet for folks. But anyway, so I just want to prove to you that this is made up fact. This is pretty serious stuff for us as property operators, owners, and managers. The next one at 3.2 is actually North Douglas. It actually has less crime when you look at the stats. Now, I'm not sure how it is. I think it's per capita. Anyways, 3.3 is just identifying that there is crime in that neighborhood, and there has been for years. I've been doing this for 29 years just about now, and we've got bullets out of windows from time to time. So it's not. It's a difficult area, but we've managed to find a niche in the market there. I'd like to take you to 3.14. Just there's a couple of areas here I like to. Vacancy rates increase as demand for rentals weaken. I just underlined some of these stuff. Primary, then they're down. Supply of new rental continues to increase. Primarily occurring in the East Kildonan area and Fort Garry and central survey zones. Going back to my question about why would we see a reduction of 5.47% maintenance, I'm wondering if the model is reducing it due to this fact that in East Kildonan there's a significant amount of new builds and what have you. So that's the reason for that question. It's in my rebuttal, by the way. The average asking rent for an apartment on page 3.16 was $75 more than the actual for what was paid. Discount. Current market conditions limit the growth on page 3.17. Jumping to 3.21, purpose-built apartment rental universe in Winnipeg, CMA increased by 2,915 units in 2021, post reference, but they were built prior to that. 322, 323, just some basic information about unemployment rates. 324, I put this in here because rehabilitating a property is not simple. There is a process for doing that. You are required to pick and choose structural, electrical, plumbing, and that may not be enough for the inspector from residential tenancies branch. So you could end up doing more. And then the problem with this thing is that you get a 5-year rent holiday. If you go to 330, you spend $41,000 or more in a unit, you get a 5-year rent holiday, whereas 20 years on new builds. So if you're in a down cycle, so if you built 4 years ago, let's say, and you're putting these units back into play, and you're in year 5 or 4, and there's a downturn in the market, your new market rent will be set at what you can rent it for, not for what you think it's worth. So that becomes a new legal rent, and you can get burned. Went through that about 20 years ago, and we got fried on a few units just because of a market downturn. 332, page 332, I just highlighted there in a box that the province will suspend any rent increases scheduled to take effect on April 1st or late. I get it's a pandemic, but this is where I make the comment, government. What does government have to do with risk? Well, there's an instant, short-term incident, but it is. 334, I just wanted to point to you, this was an email to me about getting some repairs done in a parkade, $97 per square foot from 0 to ½ inch. It should be 2 inch actually. And it's 0 to 2 inch is 103 and 2 to 4 is 98 and through floor is 90. So anyways, just to prove that this is just an expensive process to own buildings and balconies and parkades. There's 335 is the one on Keniston with a significant amount. This is the one where the balconies are pushing upwards of 40 grand. And there's another picture of it on the side. My tab 4, we've capitalization rates. I'm not going to go through this and bore everybody with it, but I will highlight a couple of things here. I think it was mentioned earlier on the page 416. We've got suburban class B low rise, and contrary to your comments about, I don't know what a low rise B is and a low rise E is. I actually don't know either. But I do see that a low class here, and if we don't know the answer in Winnipeg, nobody knows the answer in Winnipeg. So therefore the cap rates are 5.75 to 6. So my cap rates aren't unreasonable as presented earlier in the spreadsheet. And that is for stabilized incomes, by the way. So that the data on that's 2018 in the bottom right on, and on my 417, it's 5.5 to 6. So there's a little bit of a spread there. Again, I think location, area, construction, balconies, parkade, asbestos, it has to push towards the 6. 19, you can see this is a 219, 2018, 5.5 to 6, and this is a 2020. So I'm done with that. Moving to tab number 5. Tab number 5, I'd just like to, this is a summary of the city's, been summarizing this for a few years. On page 5 too, it's the valuation of income producing properties 2023 general assessment. We go back to 5.0. Just wanted to show you on the on item 3.0 operating expenses 2018 the operating. This is for this particular property. We're talking 38, 39, and 40. It's in the 401 area. That's the building numbers for the ones we're discussing currently. So in 2018, 54.36 was the expense ratio, 55.36 in 2020, and then this year it's 2023 is 49.48. So a significant drop, which is probably worth a couple $1 million in valuation. And I'm not aware of anything really going down in value or in costs or going down in costs. I know our costs have been going up annually about 2.5% to 7% for the last 4 years. So the only thing that may go down is energy, providing we have a very, very warm winter, which hasn't happened recently. The following pages are just more summary. I see that in the 2023 valuation, it looks like in the 7.0 category, there's been a change. If you go down to 8, it used to be 61 or more unit building count. I believe this is buildings. And it looks like there's been, if I go back up to 7 on page 5.1, you can see that the city in this current year has broken out to 61 to 100, 101 to 200, and over 200. And they've recategorized these buildings, which again makes me wonder if the modeling system is taking into account, particularly East Kildonan, whether those modeling is skewing the numbers for properties such as quality at 365 things. Because like, again, my costs are not going down. Skip over to item number 6. This was, I just take you actually to 6.4. It was analysis and conclusion on a file at the board of municipal board, sorry. And it was, all it was basically doing is calling into question the fact the capitalization rate or the information that was provided was not transparent. And because of the lack of transparency, the board was reluctant to accept the position of the assessment department. We continue to have that. And so, you know, here's a perfect example where a decision was made in response to that. If I take you to page number 7, I'm not going to bore you with this, but I will show you this quickly because I think the assessor's documents actually kind of prove this, that there's no upside potential for those properties, whether you renovate them or not, there's no upside potential. You may get a pop of $50 to $75, but $41,000+ is not a great return on that kind of money. And chances are it's not going to be $41,000. It's going to be far more than that because there's going to be an engineer involved. So we just kind of looked at that first page. These are the ones we deal with on a regular basis. And you can see that in the highlighted gray area, just at the very top, it says 365 things, 19 and 20 renos, no renos, 924, 948, and you can see the prices down and around. We're all in the same place. There are some properties, as you go into the back of this brief, you can see properties in this brief that are renovated for the same amount of money as we're getting in our properties. We again, well maintained, and I agree with you. Over $1,500 is not unreasonable for R&M, for example. So with that, I finalized with page 8.0, and this is where these two numbers of these two valuations came from. So when I looked at the Johnson report, I pulled all 1970 buildings out of the Johnson report. I kind of plugged them into, I kind of put them in here, kind of looked at them, at what whether they're balconies or no balconies and parking, stuff like that. And then I broke it down to the area of Watt Street, Roach, Stratacona, Talbot, and Watt, 646 Watt. Now, it was a portfolio sale, 4 buildings sold, and they were all for $103,500 a door. So obviously, selling one in Osborne Village and one in Watt Street, excuse me, you know, there's going to be a differential, but they were all the same price. So eliminated that one. $71,500 at 436 Talbot. Same condition as our buildings, really, for the most part, but it's a little low. So what I did is I averaged Roach and Stratacona. They're very, very close. Actually, a home run would hit Stratacona and Roach, well, a little further across the street from us. The average price was $98,755. When I multiply that by 377 units, I get a value of $230,635, which is very close. Hence why I reduced my capitalization rate on column 3 to 37,384. And and hence, when I tested your numbers with your vacancy, the assessment department's management fees, and put in a 9.5 cap rate, which is evident on page 8.1, for example, it's a 5.93. And in my rebuttal, I show other cap rates in the 9s and 6 actually. And it comes out very close. So that is how I tested the valuation. I just tried to use information that was available to me. I find the cap rates are extraordinarily skewed this particular assessment. And on the very back page, 8.2, you'll see 2 lines that come out to the side of the page and connect the bottom box with the top box. So here's two properties in 2 different categories with 2 very different cap rates. And so, with all due respect to cap rates, they're metric, and I guess they're for the financial institution, but really you're going to buy a block building. How much does it cost? How much do you got to put into it? How much do you expect to get out of it? And what are the risk elements of it and in costs? And eventually, I guess that will give you a cap rate. I'm not so sure it represents this property here because of the fact all of those comparables, basically, with the exception of one maybe, had balconies, and they were all, you know, under 100. They were in that. They just didn't make sense. So that's why I broke it down by area, and that's how I tested these numbers, and that's why I have submitted those rates. That is my evidence.
Okay, questions, Mr. Grafis?
Yes, thank you. Okay, so just looking at the spreadsheet you sent, just so I'm clear when I'm doing my questions, looking at column 3 and column 4, which vacancy are you using for your valuation? Are you using 2% or are you using 3%?
I tested this both ways. Okay, that's why I've used 2 numbers. I used my vacancy in column 3 and my expenses and all my numbers stabilized. And so I reduced my cap rate to 6% because I thought maybe with the calculation of those sales in the Elmwood area, that better represented the value of that property, which is up from my original calculation of 6.1 and a $36.7 million or $36.8 million valuation under column 1. And then what I did is I plugged your numbers in. Won't lie to you, a little frustrated with this. So I plugged your numbers in at 3.2% of the apartment income, 4,405,61. I plugged that number in as vacancy to equal 3.2% as allowed by the metrics. And then I plugged in your 5% for property management into that below. I left my maintenance, which is in the end is actually a little bit lower, but in all fairness, it's stabilized as is at 553,000. So that changed the net operating income to 2,221,461. And so again, I kind of looked at the valuations and these all make sense based on, in my original presentation on tab 1, when we saw the cap rates move from the original, from the last assessment appeal, they've all moved, but not as much this time around, and it all makes sense. It's reasonable in my world. I mean, not everybody lives in my world.
Okay, so just to be clear, in terms of what valuation you're supporting, are you using column 3 as your final estimate of valuation, or column 4?
I'm going to use. They're so close. I'm going to use column number 4 because that's what I'm allowed to use by way of the city metrics. That's what I'm going to use. I'm going to use $335,478. And again, that's because I wanted to test it against the sales of existing property. It's more than that, but that's fine.
Okay, that's fine. I just want to
Sorry,
make sure that
answer any questions. Sorry.
Okay, so for column number 4, you did a site-specific analysis on the income and expenses for the most part. Would you agree with that statement?
Sorry, can you repeat it?
You did a site-specific analysis on the historic income and expenses of this property and came out to figures in column number 4. Would that be a fair statement?
It is a reasonable statement.
Okay, so I agree with that. One thing that stands out to me is you use the 3.2 vacancy when you look at the actual historic performance of the property. It tracks at 2.3%, 2.26%, and in the most recent year, about 2%. Why did you opt to use a higher vacancy when the property has been clearly displaying better demand than market figures?
Well, you wanted to use 5%, and I get that that's you want to use 5% for management, and I don't think that's fair considering. So what you want to do is you want to take my vacancy, plug it into column 4, use the 5% management fee, which increases the net operating income by, I think it's going to be upwards of $70,000, $30,000. Yeah, it will be actually way more, up around almost $100,000. I don't think that's right. If you're going to use the numbers, then let's use the numbers. If you want to use my numbers, I have no problem using my numbers in column 3. But are we going to plug in the $580,000 then for maintenance? Like, I mean, it's kind of almost this point, it becomes semantics, right?
Well, no. What I'm asking you is if a purchaser. Okay, maybe I'll frame it this way to be a little bit more clear. So if a purchaser was looking at the historical performance of this property and coming to an estimation of effective gross income, would they not consider the historic performance of the property more so than the city modeled amount?
Okay. I suppose that's true. So if you're okay with this, Matthew, I'm happy to use my column 3. It's like $49,000 more. I have no problem with that. But if you were going to use, are we going to use my maintenance? Are we going to use my management fees? Or are we going to end up plugging in yours? And again, it adds a whole bunch of money to this. Right? This is the problem, and we talked about this. Management fee is not 5%. Management fee is 5.25% because if I'm charging 5%, it's a GST taxable item, so it becomes 5.25%. What we're netting here is 4.76%, and so that's my issue. I get it's a municipal board decision, but that doesn't mean it doesn't have, it has to change here. So that's my answer to you.
Okay, so just to be clear, just because I'm talking about vacancy, I haven't talked about management yet. Just to be clear, they would most likely consider the below market vacancy historical performance of the property. Would you not agree?
Mr. Brokus, I manage the vacancy of this property. So I know what the niche market is, so I manage the vacancy. $15 is the difference between 5% vacancy and 3% or 2% vacancy. So the fact of the matter is, yes, I suppose you are correct that they would in fact use that. But the fact of the matter is, if they wanted to up the rent by any margin, you will be probably $150,000 to $60,000 to $80,000 in vacancy. So I don't know the answer to that question per se, but I've been doing this a long time, and we do use those numbers. That is the number. I can't deny that. So it is what it is. But in my calculation here, Mr. Barokas, I have used that vacancy in column 3. I'm prepared to accept column 3 as a valuation, assuming you will accept 265,109 as management.
Okay, well, I mean, we haven't agreed on NOI, and this isn't like an a la carte kind of thing. So I'll move on past that. So going on to the management, you got 5.6. Are you aware that typically other applicants stabilize management at 5% of effective gross income when coming to the Board of Revision?
You've heard my comment on that. I commented.
Okay, fair enough. Okay, so looking at, going to your originally, the brief you submitted originally, I'm going to your page, sorry. You've got page 3.14, which is page 28 of the PDF.
So 3.14?
Yes. And which is page 28 of the PDF.
3.14. Okay.
So this is taken, this is shows some vacancy rates. Is this taken from CMHC?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so it shows that vacancy rates a lot higher than what this property has historically performed at. Did you factor any of that into your selection of cap rate?
No, well, yes, vacancy as a whole, it's a litigious item for sure, but yes and no.
Okay.
Vacancy isn't one component of capitalization rate, Mr. Barokas. It's a host.
We're kind of spending a lot of time on this property. Can we get a little bit more focused on the questions on what's really important here?
Okay, yeah, okay, so just, I'm almost done. So let me go to, just got a big file. I have it down on my notes as page 4.0, which is page 52 of the PDF. You've got a summary of cap rates from Colliers and CBRE. Given the fact that this property is historically displayed greater demand than the market is showing the average vacancy to be, do you not agree that the cap rate you've selected at the higher end of the range might be a bit too high?
What does greater demand mean?
Well, it means you have lower vacancy than what I just talked about what we just talked about on 3.14.
Vacancy number one. So no, I wouldn't say that I picked the lower end of this property. Again, as mentioned to you before, vacancy is not one component of cap rates. It is a basket of goods, and that includes parking lots, balconies, how many units are under a square foot of roof, the interiors to be fixed, the asphalt to be fixed. It is a basket of goods. And the fact of this is a 7-acre property that requires more work. So no, I would not agree with that.
Okay.
7% capitalization is appropriate for it based on all of those aspects.
Okay. And I know you just earlier mentioned, I'm almost done, just about the parking and how there's parking break-in issues. Would not be then advantageous to have inside parking to keep the cars safe from the people going by on the street?
Excuse me?
Would it not be advantageous if there's an issue with people breaking into cars, like you mentioned in your presentation, to have underground parking to keep those cars within the property?
And there is I can't add to it. There's 186 indoor parking stalls and 177 outdoor. So I can't add to that unless I add another story and spend about $6 million building parkades, I guess. $3 million to $6 million building parkades.
Okay. And is there a difference in parking rate from inside to outside parking?
I think it's $10 or $20, $20.
Those are my questions. Thank you.
Okay, Bob, any questions of the applicant?
No, I don't have any. Thank you.
Ian?
A couple of questions with respect to cap rates. You have said a few times you selected 6.1%. What base, as a result of all of the potential problems you've outlined, what baseline are you using to increase the cap rate to 6.1%?
So I'm using two. So I used I tested the sales price of units in the area, and I've averaged those. I've multiplied them by the units, so they're very close to us. So that came out the value of those units. Number one, divide that and they're very close to the cap rates which we've selected. So what I've done is I've reduced the cap rates to compare to the sales in the neighborhood based on a unit by unit basis. Also, you can see in that 8.1 or whatever it is, there is a sale at 5.5, is it 5.53, I think, or 93. That's out on St. James Street near the St. James Collegian. So obviously there's higher cap rates available. And number three, I over the years, this property has always commanded a higher cap rate by virtue of decisions. I understand that they're not addressed, but they are in fact. These cap rates have been adjusted forward for a higher value in light of the evidence that I've presented. And there's nothing different from previous years to this year that we've supplied. So that's how I arrived.
Okay, the cap rates that you have on a summary of on page 8.2 of your appendix. Is that a chart that you prepared yourself, or is that one that has been prepared by somebody else?
8.2.
8.2.
Yeah, this was prepared. I think this is through Stevenson or somebody like that. Again, higher cap rates and better located areas for sure.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
All right, and I have no questions. I noticed, Mr. Parsons, you had a couple of items for rebuttal. Did you want to speak specifically to them? I know you did mention them in your original presentation.
Yeah, I just quickly, and Mr. Rockis has made reference to a couple of these units that are no longer being categorized within the capitalization rates. I believe that 510 Burnell is out, 1833 359 or 859 Grosvenor, and I think the remaining stay in. Is that correct?
think you said Pembina and Grover are out as being a package deal.
Yeah, is that correct? Okay.
Yes,
Anyways,
that's correct.
and 32 Arden, you know, there's 4 capitalization rates for 32 Arden. And so I'm a little perplexed by that. The city has one, Aldous has one, and Stevenson, as I showed you in that 8.2, I believe that you would ask about, there's 2 cap rates in there. So I don't put any value in that. There's just too many variables there to deal with. That's why I kind of went back to see what's going on in sales, so to speak. Anyways, so going forward, I just want to bounce ahead here to 700 St. Mary's on my page 2. I just reverse calculated the cap rate and the sales value, and 6.9 was what I got, $690 for a rental unit. I couldn't find any evidence, but does that match up with what you discovered when you were analyzing it?
Is this? I don't understand what's going on. Is this your presentation, or are you?
My rebuttal to your capitalization.
Yeah, I don't have the workups in front of me right now. So
no workups. Okay. Anyways, I drive by this place all the time, and I noticed that, for example, there's a tremendous amount of foundation work, and around the building, big cracks in the wall. So I'm just wondering if the cap rate was right, because there's maybe some unoccupied units that can collect rent because of leakage. But anyways, I'll just leave that be. I'll move on. 77 Maryland, for example, Street. Is it still the policy of the taxation department to not use buildings that are bought for repositioning in the capitalization rate study or in the metrics for the modeling? I thought those weren't allowed.
I mean, this is your presentation, not you questioning me on the stuff
this is
you
your
brought in.
presentation. Not questions. If you're making the assertion that this was bought for rent and the purpose of renovation, I mean that's your evidence. So it's not
responding to what was in the presentation to me. Anyways.
Yes, I mean, but if you have evidence that was bought for renovation purposes, then please present it.
Okay, well, it is. They were right here on page 8 then. Page 7 and 8. The renovated apartments. And they're asking almost $900 for a unit. And the reverse calculation of the capitalization rate is $700. So there's something's happened to that one. So anyways, my only question was whether it was vetted for that. So anyways, I'll move on. And then obviously we've already discussed those 3 properties that the Premier Manitoba had. And then also on my rebuttal evidence, there are capitalization rates that are higher than modeling, for example. So that's my page 12. I just wanted to demonstrate that. And then on my page 13, I just wanted to show you that where the subject property is in the red tag is well outside of all the other properties. So so that's why I put that. I've just put this picture in there because your 1150 Monroe is out by grocery stores and malls and stuff like that. And so, Ray Crescent's in a residential area. Jamieson's just a few feet off of Henderson Highway at the very top end of the Chalmers district. But anyways, we already addressed the ratio on page 14. So I did want to address though the size of the property, just make you aware that this is there's nothing in your comparables that takes into account the size of property. This is a survey certificate. It's a 7-acre property. There's a photo on 16, and I tried to sort of represent these just to show you from an aerial that it's a big property and big properties cost more to operate. On 17 is just I just wanted to make you aware of that of the the utility included in that comparable that you said it wasn't, but it is. And then 365 Thames, it just proves it's a 7-acre property and it goes through. Now, for whatever reason, 1150 Monroe is not in here, but it's 5.9 acres, just for reference purposes. Let's see here. If I bounce to my 22 page, this is 21 Roslyn Road, 5.95 cap rate by the model. And 3 Donald Street on page 24, 6.1% by the model. And
Were these included in his presentation?
I'm sorry.
Were these included in his presentation, in the city's presentation?
No, I'm just rebuttaling the comparables that are used.
That's not rebuttal. Rebuttal will be items on in his presentation. This is new evidence then.
I just can't hear.
Sorry, Mr. Chair, can you speak a little slower into the mic? We're having some difficulty.
Oh, okay, sorry. If he's introducing properties that weren't part of the city's presentation, then it's not rebuttal evidence, it's new evidence itself.
Well,
So,
it's just a point of interest here. If the assessor is using comparables that I have no understanding of, and I'm addressing basically comparables here in this cap rate study, how is this new evidence? It's rebutting what he's using because I haven't had a chance to look at his stuff. I've submitted all my stuff. I've worked within my portfolio of information here. And so how is this how is this new evidence? It's responding to
it's properties that weren't included in the city's original presentation. Therefore, it's not rebutting anything in the city's presentation.
but page
It's
4.
perfectly acceptable to rebut, to say that a property has been renovated, that one of the city's comparables have been renovated, but you can't introduce new properties.
Okay. And just finally, the ratio study, just on the on that 2020 ratio study, that's 5.6.2 of the municipal parcel sales. It just, it's already been addressed, so I guess it doesn't matter because the 18, those two parcels were removed, so that becomes.
All right, Mr. Baracus, any questions on the rebuttal evidence?
No questions.
Any questions from the panel on the rebuttal evidence?
None, thank you.
No, thanks.
All right, so that concludes this property. We will take a 5-minute break and then get on to our second property. And we do have a few more to go on this agenda, so let's be cognizant of the time constraints. Thank you very much. We'll reconvene at 10:35.
Yeah, we got one to be solved. What time is it now?
10:30.
Oh, I'm very good plug that in hard.
George, good luck. 2 degrees.
It's supposed to be going up to 21, they say, though.
Oh, beautiful.
We should be live.
All right, let's reconvene then. The next property on the agenda is 240 Stradbrook. So, Mr. Baracus, you can proceed.
All right, thank you very much. One moment, just let me pull up my email here. This is another property that we discussed ahead of time, and we have a recommendation on it beyond what is on mine. So let me open the file and then I'll read it in. Sorry, I was looking at other stuff. Okay, so file 22-727 Roll number 12097701500, 240 Stradbrook Avenue. The model value was originally 19,441. I had originally had a recommendation of 18,199. However, the applicant and I, we talked ahead of time and we were able to come to what I think is still in agreement of, so my new recommendation is 17,683,000 rounded based on adjusting the net operating income and the cap rate very slightly.
So cap was raised?
Very slightly, yeah.
Okay. What was the new NOI?
990,239.85
And the new cap rate?
was 5.6, bumped it up 0.1.
Okay, and Mr. Parsons, how do you feel about this recommendation?
We've agreed ahead of time, so I'm good with this.
Okay, thank you very much. Any questions from the panel on this property?
Nope, not for me.
Nope.
Okay, we'll move on to item 3, which is 130 Bellevue.
Item 3 has been withdrawn.
Oh, sorry, yes, yeah. So item 4 then is 75 South Park. Let me just pull up the files. Okay, Mr. Brackus, you can proceed on 75 South Park.
Thank you. File number 22-724, roll number 03063067,000. 75 South Park, roll year 2023, assessed value 3,122,000. Built in 1972, 30 suites, 30 outdoor parking spots. Page 2, you can see they've been good. Handing in the mailers, no issues there. Thank you for that. No recent sales history. Model income value summary is on page 3. You can see it's an even split between bachelor and one beds. Model average monthly rent assigned $883.38. And it comes up to a net operating income of $156,077. For the purpose of keeping things brief, just glancing ahead, I think we're almost identical. The applicant's NOI in this submission is slightly higher by $3,000, so I'll just keep the discussion at cap rate. Talked a lot on cap rate already. So again, look at my chart on page 5, please. 510 Burnell, Pembina and Grosvenor won't be, they haven't been appearing in submissions since, but there's a 2-week lag. 677 Maryland, that property was renovated in 2013. I got that from Altus's original cap rate submission. They have it in theirs. We looked into it, we have it in ours. So I know the issue of the renovation, and it said newly renovated, but newly happened before the sale. And Arden, in regards to the differential in cap rate, well, I mentioned before, there's just a difference in stabilization of the income. Other than that, it's pretty close. You've heard my charts and discussion around it last time, so you can see the income expense mailer found on page 8. It's the most recent one. It's predominantly a cap rate issue. There's some pictures. The property is located, I believe, down by the University of Manitoba, down in Fort Garry. Let me just I'll get you the cross street right away. So South Park is just off Pembina Highway, just north of the Victoria General Hospital. That's my evidence. Thank you.
Okay, questions, Mr. Parson?
Just quickly, want to point out that there is a difference with the mix of bachelors and one bedrooms relative to your comparables. That they are 15 bachelors. Next closest guy has 1 and 2 in Chancellor. Also want to point out that your number two comparable 231 is a 1980 build. So relatively speaking, this property has a lot of bachelors relative to the other folks.
Yeah, that's definitely true.
Okay, and can you just tell me again what was the renovation date for 677 Maryland?
Let me pull that. It was 2013, I believe. I'll look into our notes. In Altus's cap rate study, it said 2013. What do we have here? I have a note from August of 2014 saying that the property had been renovated. Windows, doors, cabinets, counters, bathroom surrounds, sinks, vanities, lighting, and appliances. And flooring as well. So it happened before sale.
Okay, next, I have this. So as far as this, the capitalization rates and the transparency of the modeling, same questions. I have issues with the transparency and modeling as there is no evidence, there's no mock-up, there's no workup to demonstrate how these are arrived at. Those are my questions.
I don't have a breakdown.
I didn't know you said that, so I get it.
Okay, were those your questions?
Yeah, I'm done.
Okay, Ian, any questions of the assessor?
No, thank you.
Robert, any questions?
These are all model driven, these numbers, including
Yes.
Y and so on. Okay, everything's model. You
Yes.
didn't utilize the submission of the applicant for NOI.
Well, his NOI and our NOI are like almost the same. His is a little bit higher, so it's just a cap rate thing.
Okay, okay. That's fine. It's all model. Thank you.
All right, and I have no questions, so you can proceed, Mr. Parsons.
75 South Park, starting on tab 1, page 1.0. The location of the city is on the northwest corner of a alley that parallels the now rapid transit corridor. It is west of Pembina Highway on South Park Drive. The issue was that the property had an expropriation several years ago, where a 1 meter strip was taken from the boulevard, which crossed the front steps of the building. It's changed the dynamics of the building. It is now a priority 1 street with approximately 350 buses accessing it on regular and up to 450 during special events, i.e. bomber games, for example. Being it's a priority 1 street, it has some parking restrictions. There was loss of parking through this expropriation, with loss of land through this expropriation, and I will be showing here throughout my presentation. And I know what you're going to say, but there have been 6 cap rates. Capitalization rates. The owner is an entrepreneur. He came from Italy as a child. He bought the property. There's been significant change, and that is substantiated by George Hewlett's comments in this portfolio or in this submission. The property was originally sort of grasslands on the side of a railroad track with 2.5 trains a week. The city came in, expropriated the land, knocked all the trees down, took the property from the owner. We had to juggle some parking around and increase parking or replace parking. And so as a result, with the significant changes to the property, and being the fact that, and I will prove back here, the properties with high capacity traffic and education facilities nearby have commanded a higher cap rate. So we're submitting a cap rate of 6% for a value of $2,659,183, or $2,660,000 rounded. Take you to page 1.2. This is a before and after picture. This is what the property looked like in 2015, and this is what the property now looks like in 2020 or whatever the date was taken. Anyways, since the renovations of the area. 1.4 shows the property before conversion to rapid transit. As you can see on the street near the corner there was street parking that no longer exists. It was a well-treed area, lots of sort of, as I mentioned, it's kind of like a prairie grass and greenery along a railroad track, sort of side of the city, country type feel to the property. Since been changed. 1.5 is page 1.5 is the overhead view of what looks to be, or what is rapid transit. You can see a bus in sort of the bottom quarter of the page entering it, one of those tandem buses. You can see there's no trees, there's nothing anymore. They had to move the railroad track closer to the residential area. Lots of parking. 1.6 is just some standard pictures of the property itself. There's nothing improved on them as is, replaced countertops, same cabinetry and cabinetry doors. 1.8 is a little galley kitchen. 1.8 at the top, sorry, is a bathtub. 1.8 at the bottom is galley kitchen. 1.9 is just a living room or small units. And 1.9 at the bottom is the access to from the suite. 1.10 is just again another galley kitchen, closet arrangement because of cabinetry to give a little more space. Tab 2, as Mr. Barak mentioned, I don't really have a dog in the fight on the NOI. It is what it is. Cap rates are main concern. Page 3, again, you saw this in the previous presentation, property knowledge and how that affects capitalization rates. We will not need to go in detail for that. Pages, just like to point out, page 511, again, it's just the rates are what's being asked for and what are being gotten from rentals are not necessarily the same. We're in CMHC. And there's current market conditions are limiting the growth in average rent. So now we've seen some vacancy and turnover in the property. If you look back into that income and expense statement, although the same as the cities, there has been a increase in the last 2 years, going from about $4,500 to over $12,000 in vacancy. Property will now go through a transition due to rapid transit. That was their experience at 240 Stradbroke when phase 1 rapid transit occurred. And that the property will transition now through demographics, people that are comfortable with noise, tendency to congregate in those areas, people that aren't will move on. And that was our experience at 240 Stradbroke. We just had a demographic change there. It has an increase in operating costs due to the type of people that are comfortable with that environment. We've gone through these as well, 3.17 and so on and so forth. I think what I'm going to do is I'm just going to skip to number 4 here, tab 4, because we've gone over all this stuff already once. Tab 4, page 4.0. The property here that I'm showing you at 5.93. There was 3 buildings. They were sold and they're right next to St. James Collegiate. In sort of researching properties, because this is a unique situation, right? Where land has been taken and a significant change in the environment. This property, took a while to sell. It was a lower cap rate in the beginning and ended up selling at a 9.3. It's right next to St. James Collegiate. It's right next to the St. James Library on Portage Avenue. So this has similar characteristics. I'm not going to say it's the same, but it certainly has similar characteristics to what is going on at 75 South Park Drive. And again, this 4.1 page, we've reviewed it. I don't put much value in these cap rates anymore. The cap rate study, I will take you back to the pages we did discover. on 4.18, and I will only address one page because we addressed the other three, is that 5.75.6 on page 418 was 5.7 to 6, and then I think it expanded to 5.5 to 6. That cap rate isn't unreasonable considering what the situation is there. Significantly in stop starts, noise, east-west traffic, north-south traffic, and that property is highly exposed to all of that noise and disturbance. Unlike a building a block 100 feet in or 150 feet, they're only seeing traffic going back and forth, where this property is experiencing a significant amount of stop and start. So I will skip through to that, past that, because we will address the cap rates there. But again, well within the cap rates, as the previous property was well within those cap rates as well. And then I just included in 5, that's the cap rate and modeling. Again, I have concerns with the transparency of how cap rates, how the modeling works, because it seems to be a bit of a mystery. Number tab 6, that was the decision and order. We've reviewed that particularly on pages 6.4 and 6.5. Page 7 is where we kind of get into the property itself from an expropriation point. 7.0 and 7.2 up to 7.2 were just the documents for expropriation, so there's evidence that there was in fact. 7.3 shows how they had a boulevard, how it had a sidewalk, and how it had an entryway, and that dotted black line is where the property line ended up being. And so in part of the expropriation, there was a significant change to that front entrance, not to mention the loss of foliage and trees and what have you, and green space around the building. 7.4 is an overhead view of the lands that were taken, including the 2 parking stalls that were later replaced. That was a little arduous, but it got done. And this is a drawing, an actual engineer drawing, or from the engineering company that oversaw it. See, the other one page is just a closer up, if you wish. And then you can see there's the CNR rail tracks, and there's trees on the left, bottom left corner of the page there. So 7.6 is the reconfiguration. So those dark lines are what has changed. You can see that the lines are overlaid on top of the street, and you can see that now there's no boulevard from where the buses turn north and south onto the transit corridor. There's a significant loss of traffic. Not to mention there is a loading zone. However, you're on priority on the street, and so the ticket guy is going to come along and hassle anybody with a moving truck if they can't get into the back lane, for example. 7.7 is just the reconfiguration, top level, the bottom left corner. If you leave in the current in the 8.5 by 11, it's the top. The bottom left side is the current configuration, and the bottom right corner is the new configuration. So here's where the problems really began for this property. Markham Road was supposed to be the access to the university. That changed in a meeting between the city and the university. When there was some trading going on land and access. So South Park then became the access point when Markham Road had always been the preferred route. That the access for South Park from rapid transit through South Park into the Southwood Golf Course lands there is that future development. There was recently an announcement about that. So South Park was sacrificed for Markham Road because that wasn't what the university wanted. And so there you are, expropriated land for South Park. 8.tab 8, this is George Hewlett. This is an inquiry into the conduct of the city and the takings of land as an expropriation. 6.10, or sorry, 8.10, just quickly here. Point A, it just says Winnipeg has not demonstrated that the extent of the proposed expropriation and plan is fair and reasonable. C says about Markham Road, popular 8.11. This is the negotiations that saw South Park. Markham Road changed to South Park, so it was in a very short period of time. It was a negotiation. 8.12. .337, it says the city has failed to examine and pursue options, failed to do due diligence concerning the taking, and has not satisfied the onus that a fair or reasonable and necessary in the circumstances for taking, and has failed to establish the taking would balance the private versus the public interest. So pretty damning words from the inquiry officer, which affected that property significantly. Sorry, 8.14, just at the bottom half of that first paragraph, it says the objector points out and stresses that there was no proper traffic analysis or studies done, little attention was paid to engineering practices. That's in regards to the conversion of Martin to South Park. 3.47, the impact of this apartment block, and I think this is important, the impact upon his apartment block, just because it's not me saying it, is significant. It's unfortunate, disappointing the city, and making the basic changes to the routing after the November 13 open house would have not contacted the old owner. So just again, just some more. This was pretty well mishandled for sure. This whole situation. 817 is double lined at the bottom. Taking a property voluntarily from the landlord is contrary to history of the property rights that should be done separately. So this building now will go through a transition. It started in 2020. As I mentioned, it's $12,000 in vacancy, and it will continue until that phase of life at that building has changed. So point 9 here, or page 9, I should say, 9.0, before and after of the front, it's significantly changed now. 9.1, before and after, as I mentioned, was tall grass, railroad track, and trees. It's now, kind of looks like a penitentiary, actually. I worked in one 20, 30 years ago, so kind of reminds me of that. Let me go to page 9.2, again, before and after, but winter picture this time, just to show you the contrast. Try to take these pictures from the same angle and just to show you the change in property there. 9.3, I think it's self-explanatory. Same thing for 9.4, before and after. The bottom of 9.4, you see the loss of parking. And on 9.5, you can kind of see what I was talking about, the tree area and the environment has changed. Now the noise attenuation wall on the residential side. Finally, this borders the property, the 9.6, picture 9.6 borders to the west of between the alley and the building in the active transportation. So this is a green, this is not very well maintained and it doesn't look very well good for the property as well. So, unlike before. Point 10, just a picture of a large transport truck that does move people from time to time. They use those big wooden crates. Truck like that cannot park on South Park now. And with the raised at the intersection where transit and South Park meet, the transit corridor meet, there's a raised boulevard. So getting a truck into the alley like this is going to be difficult. We asked for a noise attenuation wall on 10.1. We did not receive, and these are previous board orders. And just showing what had happened with the history of the property and decision making. And then finally, 10.5 was just that submission that we had made. There has been some resolution, but there was a lot of stuff that had not been addressed from our aspects from what we requested from the city in doing this. That's my presentation.
Okay, questions, Mr. Baracus?
Yeah. So the expropriation and reconfiguring of the land around the subject property, when was that completed?
Well, 2.5 years ago, 3 years ago, two years ago.
Okay.
Late in the previous year. So about 2 years ago this time.
Okay. So are you saying that the increase in vacancy is because of the reconfiguring of the land around property in 2020?
The changed environment has affected the property, and now it's going to go through a transition. We experienced it at a temporary strategy. So now what will happen is that A different set of persons will now come into this property that were there before. Again, experiences for Stradbrook, and now over the next couple of years, they'll go through this transition. So yeah, vacancy has a little bit to do it for sure. Yeah.
Oh, okay. In terms of the tenants, is there a high student population given its proximity to University of Manitoba?
It used to be, but no longer. It's not as occupied by students any longer.
Okay,
That's part of the demographic change.
okay. Is proximity to the University of Manitoba something you consider in your selection of cap rate in terms of tenancy strength potential?
No, because there was no service improvement to the building. The building's always been close to the University of Manitoba. And so there was no service improvement with any of this to the building when they constructed the rapid transit. So no, we have I don't think the university figures as much as it used to. So that's why it's a higher cap rate.
Okay, those are my questions. Thank you.
Okay, Bob, any questions?
No, I don't have any, thank you.
Okay, Ian, any questions?
No questions, thank you.
All right, Mr. Parsons, I notice you have rebuttal on this. It seems at first glance to be the same as a rebuttal on the on Thames. Is there anything you wish to address on that?
Just let me check my very back page. I don't think so, actually. Other than just the location of these properties that were compared to, my only rebuttal is it's a South Park is kind of the odd duck out on the very western side, whereas Chancellor is up near the intersection of Bishop Brandon. On the west side, 55 University Crescent is up near that intersection where University Crescent dives into Bamana going north, and 34 South Park is on the east side of South Park. So it doesn't necessarily have the same effects. So that's all I wanted to point out was the locations.
All right. Thank you on that. So then that concludes the hearing on this property, which then I believe concludes your property. Now, Mr. Robertson, I guess we have to bring in Altus.
You do.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for your time, Mr. Parsons.
Hi, Henry, can you hear me? Can you hear me now, Henry?
Yeah, I hear you. Yeah.
Perfect.
All right, let me open up the new files. Okay, I guess we have to swear Henry in.
Mr. Applicant, please state your full name.
Henry DuPont.
Do you affirm that the evidence you are about to give at this hearing is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do.
Thank you.
All right, so we're going on to 70 South Park Drive. So, Mr. Brackus, you may proceed.
Okay, no problem. File 22-2993 0306-308-1200 70 South Park Drive. Same area as the last property we just talked about, down by the U of M. One building, 2 stories, 1971. We have an effective year built in 1980 on record. 44 suites, 48 outdoor parking spots. Request for rental information. They've always handed it in. Thank you for that. Model income value summary is on page 3 here. So according to my notes, we're pretty close on effective, or rather net operating income, so I won't dwell on it too much. Capitalization rate, expense rate, and income are all modeled. Cap rate 4.95. Comes up to our estimated market value of $5,891,000 rounded. Rent comparables are found on page 4. Again, the picking around the area, trying to get around the U of M, trying to capture that demand around there. Average monthly rent falls below the range of comps. But again, we're close on NOI, so I'm not gonna dwell on it. Okay, so page 5, you see our cap rate table here. So I guess this falls into the time when I was making the briefs in between, where I found out a couple of the sales need to be removed. So that's why you're not seeing those 2 associated sales on this chart. But Burnell, 510 Burnell, also, again, please put next to that one. That was purchased by the property manager. That came to light, so that one no longer belongs on the list. The other ones do. So we have that. Again, I looked at 3 years stabilized, looked at the property's performance, see if there's any odd years or anything like that, and I was able to calculate stabilized cap rates over the known sales price. So that's just to substantiate some of the modeled ranges, 20th, 80th percentile, found on row number 5 there. So mirrors what the model's putting out. Page 7 is Muni Act excerpts. And then page 8 are the income and expense statement, the most recent one. So, well, according to the little box here, we're a little bit low on the NOI. I think the applicant's a little bit higher, so it is coming down to cap rate. The rest of my brief is just a picture. As you can see, the place has been somewhat modernized inside. I don't have the notes in front of me, but I would assume that's where the effective age, the very small bump in effective age comes. So modeled parameters, looks like your NOI is good compared to actuals. That's my evidence. Thank you.
All right, questions, Mr. Dupont?
Yes, page 5 on your cap rates.
Mm-hmm.
You said you're removing 2 of them or just 1?
Oh, so I removed Burnell. In the last hearing, I was using an older chart where there was 2 sales that were there still as a package. I know the premier wasn't involved. One was on Grosvenor. I think the other one was on Pembina. Those aren't on this list anymore. I'm editing the list as I go along, and Burnell's not going to show up on briefs going forward.
All right, 2390 McPhillips, you show that it's a new building. Would you agree it has an ensuite wash and dryer?
I believe so, yes.
And would you agree it has an exercise room, as extra amenities?
Yes, new buildings like that typically do. So, and that's not something that's found within the subject property.
No, the pro forma cap rate on that one was higher. So you adjusted the NOI much more than the pro forma?
I'd have to pull up my workup. Are you talking about like an advertised pro forma?
It was advertised by a Capital Commercial, and so it was a big listing. They had 5% cap rate.
Okay, I mean 5%, 5.8. We're pretty close. We're in the same ballpark there. So yeah, I can't comment on what they advertised at.
And you can't comment how you adjusted it, how you arrive at your NOI and cap rate.
Okay, okay. One moment. Let me see if I can find my subchart. I'll keep asking me questions and I'll get back to that, get back to you with that answer when I can dig it up.
700 St. Mary's, we call the property manager. They said it was bought with the intention to renovate. The property was in poor shape. The vendor had done nothing. So would you agree that the repair and maintenance is quite low on this property and the rents are quite low?
I mean, I don't have that in my evidence, and that's just in regards to your contention. That's what you're saying, so I can't comment on that any further.
203 Bertrand, it appears it was renovated. Do you know how you arrived at your cap rate?
Okay, 1 moment.
But then again, yeah,
I
sorry.
would have looked at income and expenses submitted to the city. So for Bertrand, I now have it in front of me. So I looked at 16, 17, 18. I looked at the vacancy, the potential. So I can go line by line for you. I averaged the vacancy. I took the most recent parking. I used the effective, the potential gross income from the most recent year that we had available. Use the average vacancy for the repair and maintenance. I averaged that. I used the most recent utilities. Management, they weren't reporting their management very well. They had 0, 0, then they had really high management of 16,500, and 5% of EGI would have been 3851. So I stabilize in the same manner that we typically stabilize, that you typically stabilize your properties as well on your workups.
So what do you stabilize repair maintenance?
Oh, for 9 units, they were showing they stabilized $5,143. So that would have been 571. So if there was even higher maintenance, I believe that would drive the cap down. But I didn't use that. I used what they actually are putting into it for Bertrand. And then for McPhillips, just going back to your question, because I've been able to dig up my work now. So I did the same thing. I used the 2019 income. I averaged the vacancy. I took the average, I took the most recent parking. I took the most recent most recent insurance, 5% management EGI, most recent utilities, and then repair and maintenance. I used the average, and that was $837.68. And most recent taxes, same format, same framework as you use. Calculated 37.1 expense ratio and calculated a 4.79 cap rate, which is highly similar to what the advertised cap rate was.
So what was your vacancy stabilized?
Oh, for McPhillips?
Yeah.
McPhillips vacancy was stabilized at 1.23. They had lower vacancies in 17 and 18. And then in 2019, they had 2.13. So I stabilized at 1.23.
No, you have the same cap rates for last 3 for Altus uses those 3. 555 Corden, 677 Maryland, 32 Arden.
Yeah.
You're slightly lower than us. Do you know why?
Yeah, I have some cap rate rebuttal on that. That's going to come through. So we can answer that question. We're not far off. And I think with Corden, we're basically agreeing substantially.
So you file a rebuttal?
I did file a rebuttal.
I wonder if the board can send that to me.
That's, yeah, sure, that's fine.
Yeah, you should have received it.
Yeah, I haven't sent it yet. It wasn't mentioned. You send it, if it's mentioned, then I send it. If it's not.
Yeah, like if Henry wants to, I mean, it is my rebuttal to present, and then he can question me on it afterwards. That's typically how we do it.
Our procedure will be to go through the evidence in chief and then do the rebuttals for each side that once the questioning has been completed. So,
okay, so that's all my questions then.
okay. Bob, any questions of the assessor?
No, I don't. Thank you.
Okay. Ian, any questions?
Just with respect to the site itself, this is north of, west of Pembina Highway? 70 Southport Drive, or
I'm pretty sure it is. I know the last property we were talking about. So yeah, it's like across the street from the last property, west of South Park Drive.
Okay.
West of Pembina, pardon.
West of Pembina, yes, okay.
I need,
Okay, thank you. That's
All
my
right. Okay, so just for the clarification on that, they would have the busway also going down beside that apartment, would they not?
I mean, there's one building to the west of it, but it's essentially the same proximity. They're right across the street.
Okay.
If you just Google mapped it, you could get a better idea. I don't have a picture in my brief.
Yeah. All right. Thank you. So, Mr. DuPont, you can proceed with your presentation.
So my main report, if you go to it, so that you'll see first page, I'm asking for about 400,000 reduction. I have the photo. Then if you skip to page 7, you get the aerial photo, and then you'll have the map. And you'll see it's behind Shoppers Drug Mart, west of Pembina, north of Markham. Now the ecom approach, the evaluation spreadsheet is on page 13. Matt was saying he didn't dispute the NOI because we're higher than the assessor, and he said it came down to cap rate. So if you could just look at that, our page 13. Our NOI is 301, 388 versus the assessor 291. So we're about 10,000 higher. So we're down to cap rate. So if you wouldn't mind, I'd like to go to my cap rate report now.
All right. So, Altus cap rate report, cap rate study. All right. All right, we have it.
Okay. So page 2, it goes shows the market reports for Colliers, CBRE, and Cushman. I believe the assessor also refers to those. Second last column, the Colliers low rise A is 5 to 6, CBRE 5.25 to some 5.75. You can see that there are about 5 to 6% for Versi. Like the high rises are 5 to 6, and Cushman is the only one that's off by having 4.5 to 5.5 at the bottom for high rise. Our cap rate comparables are shown. Well, page 5 is what we believe the cap rates are. We compare to the final. We show the final settled cap rate for 2020. Then page 6 is our comparables. 535 Victor, 6.85 Then we have the three same as the assessor, 555 Cortland, 677 Maryland, 32 Arden. We have slightly higher cap rate than the assessor. So our page 7, it gives us the what we final cap rates are from the evidence. So it shows the different ages. So 1 to 5 stories, 1960, 1998, 5.5. We show the assessor's cap rates in the some examples. The assessors all over the place. They have different cap rates for similar ages, and we're not too sure as to why they do that. If you like the bottom of page 8, the 60s have some the city cap rates, I guess, the middle after the expense ratio. So they have some at 5.2 and some 5.95, some 5.10. And then 1975, we see one at 4.95. So they vary quite a bit. I'm going to look for income approaches. So Matt, where's my income approaches? Let's okay, so
One on page 41.
41, okay. We have all the data first, and we have the I believe it's after that. Page 44. Rotate the page.
I think
So
there's one on page 45, page 54, and page 63 would be the 4 workups.
yeah, I got page 44.
Okay.
So the 3-5 victory, we have the pro forma. It shows what they had. We allowed the 7.5% vacancy, which is the October 2020 CMHC. Then we disagree with the assessor, sorry, the pro forma for repair maintenance. They had 7,000 repair maintenance. We used 14,000, which was 1,000 per suite. It gives us 6.85% cap rate. Then we showed a photo, then we showed a pro forma and the MLS. The next one is page 48, 555 Cortland. We have 2013 actual, we got 2015, 14, 15 missing. They'll have 2016, 2017. We're sold 2018. We stabilized the income at the November 26 rent roll times 12. Shows the discounts. We stabilized at CMHC 2018 at 2.8%. We added the non-green parking as normal. Insurance pretty much as normal also. We stabilized it at 2-year average repair maintenance. It comes to 5.73% cap rate. And then we have the photo and the rent rolls and the financial statements we relied upon. The next one is page 57, 677 Maryland. It sold in December 2020. We showed 2017, 18, 2019 actual. We stabilized at the 20 potential market as a 2019 actual. We used 5.6% vacancy, the actual CMHC vacancy. Repair maintenance, we used the 85 per suite. It shows a 4-year repair maintenance. So we use that 85 comes 566 cap rate. Then we have the data for that property. And the next one, page 66. 32 Arden sold 2019. We have 2016 to 2018 revenue and expense. Stabilized number 3 at the December 2012 December rent roll times 12. CMHC vacancy 2%. And we use the average repair maintenance 1086 per suite, 5.36% cap rate. Shows at the bottom it had been renovated in 2008. Then we have the data on those properties follows. So that would be my report for both the cap rate and the subject.
Okay,
Is that your presentation, Mr. Dupont?
Yes, it is.
Okay, questions, Mr. Brackus?
okay. So on page 14 of the main brief, just looking at the level of vacancy on the property, now I know we're pretty close on NOI. Would you agree that given the relative low vacancy compared to market, there's strong demand for tenancy in this location?
The vacancy went up and down, 5.3 and it went down 2.2, back up to 1.7. We use the same vacancy as the assessment department.
Okay. And then just in regards to cap rates, I think I'll just end my questions there and present my rebuttal and kind of address cap rate that way.
Let's just have questions from the panel then on the main presentation from Mr. Dupont. Ian, any questions?
Just with respect to focusing on the cap rate, on page 8 of your Altus cap rate analysis, you've got a series of charts, age of buildings. Are those ages built or effective ages subsequent to renovation? Or do you see what I'm looking at here? Page 8.
Oh, the assessor's effective age.
That's the effective age. Okay.
Yeah.
This property was renovated when? The subject property, 70 South Park, was renovated when?
Oh, my remarks, which I guess you don't have, but I have it in my own spreadsheet. Oh, maybe not. Rehab 2017, you spent 105,000. That 107,000 rehab expense.
Because Mr. Baracus has an effective build date of 1980.
Yes.
Okay, and that would take into account the renovations?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, Bob, any questions?
Oh, fine for me, thanks.
Okay, Mr. Baracus, then present your rebuttal.
Okay,
Henry, yeah, one moment. Henry, you received the document? I sent it via email.
Oh,
The rebuttal.
oh, here it is. Yeah, okay.
Where is the rebuttal?
Top, off and open,
Okay, got it.
and A&T cap rate,
Okay,
right there.
thank you.
Third one up.
Thanks.
okay. Just let me know when I'm good to go.
You're good to go.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you. So, page 1 of my rebuttal, that's just the title page. Page 2 shows the chart. So, 3 of the sales are in our chart, Corden, Maryland, Arden. They're good sales. We just had a slight disagreement in regards to stabilization. I'll get into that. The first sale, 535 Victor, so it's post reference. It was registered through land titles June of 2021. So essentially, the sale itself didn't exist prior to the reference date. I know there may have been advertised finalized sale prices prior to the reference date. That being said, it still didn't exist. The sale legally didn't exist until after the reference date, so it's post-reference, it shouldn't be considered.
Okay.
Going on to page 3, what I did regardless is I did a workup.
Well, if it's a post-reference, so then we won't consider it post-reference
Okay,
material.
No, you should go with it because I believe this, our argument is that it's not post-reference. The offer to purchase was signed prior to the reference date. So the sale did exist. That's when the meeting of the minds occurred. It occurred before the reference date.
All right.
And the land titles were just something that was delayed after the meeting of the minds.
Okay, well, we will hear it then on that basis.
okay. I mean, okay, that's something you can, that's a comment you can definitely consider and wait, but again, we're saying, we're looking at when it was actually registered as a sale. So what I did is I actually looked at the 3-year income statements. We had the 3-year income statements on the property. The applicant went off of the Realtor pro forma. I've looked through a lot of MLS Realtor pro formas. They many times they don't reflect the actual performance of the property. The property was running at really high vacancy. You can see in between 20 and 35%. If I was to average it, it'd be 30%. Very conservatively, if we're stabilized, I put 10%. So parking, no parking. Laundry, Realtor estimated 1,000. In reality, they never got more than almost 800. So as a result, you can see how there's a difference between the actual historic 3-year effective gross income compared to the Realtor pro forma, which Altus based their stabilization on. Maybe they didn't have the income and expenses at their fingertips. Fair enough. You can see going further how the insurance was 45,000. As for the Realtor, Altus used 45,000. In reality, the most recent year was 5892. So that's a big difference. Management, Altus put management there at 5% of EGI. I believe that's the correct method, but the income isn't reflective of what they were actually getting based on the vacancy. I see how there's a difference in office supplies, Realtor pro forma versus reality. Same with utilities, 10,000 for hydro, 5,000 for heat versus 11,500 for hydro and 5,718 for heat. The repair and maintenance, this is a very notable one, 7,000 by the Realtor, 14,000 for Altus, which is getting closer. But again, this property was originally built in 1914. That's pretty low for 14 units at $1,000. They were actually spending on average about $1,705 per unit as per the income and expenses. So basically, without going into it further, the expense ratio that the realtor said that someone would expect to run it at, if they purchased it, Altus increased it based on adjustments to the realtor pro forma, and then we've got our stabilized actual at 53%, and that's using a 10% vacancy, which is pretty conservative based on how they're actually running the property. So that recalculated the cap rate to 5.65. Altus probably didn't have the income and expenses to work off. And again, that's our contention that it's a post-reference sale anyways. The mailers are located at the end of this document if you want to cross-reference by numbers. Next page, page 4, 555 Cordon. We actually pretty much agree. I'm not going to argue with. We're 0.1% off, so there's no need going into that one. On Maryland, this is the property that was renovated in 2013 as per our notes and the Altus remarks. So the difference between Altus and the city of Winnipeg in regards to this is that they use a 4-year average repair and maintenance versus I use the 2 most recent years, again, being renovated in 2013. Typically, there's a bit of a, I don't know, siesta or a lower level of repair and maintenance because the place has been fixed up, but that's not something an investor would expect to factor into a long-term calculation. It would tick back up. So averaging the most 2 recent years comes out to about $1,000 a unit, which is still for a 1913 renovated. It makes sense, could be even a little bit low, but I put more weight on the 2 most recent years up to the sale. I think an investor would too, and coming up with a sale price. And then the last one, 32 Arden. This is another property where we differ. So this one, we're at 5.02, Altus is at 5.36. So if you go, the difference is in regards to how the parking is counted. If you go to my page 7, you can see, so what I did is I just used the total year-to-date revenue, 249, 371.95, and you can see how that includes the parking collected to date. It shows the current month, which was December 2018. It shows 21,289. That includes the $700 monthly parking they're getting. How Altus did their calculation is they use the December rent roll, which is a little bit further down there. It's a little bit small. You have to zoom in, but I typed in the larger numbers so to help you see. If you go to receipt, it says 21,289.30. And when you compare that number to the current month, you see it's exactly the same. And that includes parking. So basically, I believe it's on page 68 of the Altus workup. Where is it? Their workup, it shows how
Page 66, yeah.
Page, yeah, of their cap rate study. They just double counted the parking, in our opinion, and you can the receipt. It's pretty clear for the most recent month accounts for it when you compare it to the current month income and expense statement. That's all just a minor difference. That would be my rebuttal in terms of the calculated cap rates they have. Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Dupont, any questions on the city's rebuttal?
Yeah, so if we stick with 32 Arden, your page 7. Okay,
Mhm.
so I don't get that. So the financial statements actually show parking income year to date 8345. And they show residential rent received, which would be the rent after vacancy, 246058. So where would we have double counted that? We showed 8345 as parking. Are you doubting that
Okay.
the financials are not correct? What?
No, that's not at all what I'm saying here. So. Nothing too fun. Um, So you calculated, you said December rent roll times 12. So that's taking the 2189, 2890 times 12. Is that how you calculated it? So yeah, okay, that's how you did it. So under receipt, you can see that if you multiply 21289 and 30 cents times 12, you get 220, 255, 468. You have on your page 63, you got 255, 540. So it looks like that's how you calculated your potential income. So, and that's based on 2128930. When I go to the actual current month, December 2018, you can see how that is inclusive of parking, right? So when I go back to your workup, pardon me, I can see that you've added parking in again, but going to the year to date and then adding it again on top when it's already included in your calculation of potential income.
Yeah, it's not that clear, but I would have to research more of the information.
Okay, other questions?
The 535 Victor. So Maryland, we don't talk too much because you say you pretty much agree. 535 Victor, so your page 3, I guess. So you showed questionnaires and they don't give a breakdown of repair and maintenance. 26,000, 25,000, and 19. 3 average is what you use with 1705 per month. So you don't have details of those repair minutes, is that correct?
That is correct.
So is it 1700 per suite for an old property like this? Likely be high and likely include capital improvements?
Oof, I mean, I don't have a breakdown. It depends. I know Victor isn't the best area in the city. There could be some vandalism that is involved in that number. It does vary. If you take an old building like this, you compare it to like an old building in the suburbs, which you don't typically see. I mean, 17, like typically what we're talking between like 1,000, 1,500. I didn't have any reason to restabilize in any way. Honestly, I didn't have any information to dig deeper into, and it's our contention that the sale is post-reference.
And I noticed the caretaker you used 0. So the financials would be that the what you deem to be vacancy would be vacancy and caretaker. Would you agree with that?
It could be if it's a live-in caretaker. Again, I didn't use the actual vacancy.
Well, it would be the free rents are taken off the potential market rent.
I mean, if I added a caretaker expense, I think the cap would go down further. I use 10% as a very conservative estimate for vacancy. I think someone buying it would probably guess higher, but there was a disconnect between, like, I don't know if you guys had the actual statements, but the realtor performer clearly can't be relied upon.
No, we don't have the financial statement, but where you show vacancy bad debt, should you not show vacancy bad debt and caretaker? Since caretaker is in fact zero in their questionnaires, they're in fact taking it off there, the vacancy bad debt.
Are they? Okay, I'm not sure about that. I'm not relying on this sale. I just recalculated the numbers based on the actuals.
Okay, so the cap rate on 555 corner, you actually a bit higher than us. So it's 677 Maryland. You took 3-year average only, we took 4 years. Would you not agree that,
I took a 2-year average.
Yeah. Would you not agree that we normally go with the 3 to 5 years for repair minutes because they tend to go up and down, and that your 2 years is very unusual?
Yeah, I get what you're saying there. Typically, we look at it over a longer term, but again, we both know that it was renovated in 2013. As per your comments, roof membrane, windows, plumbing upgrades, electrical upgrades, flooring, kitchens, bath, they're going to get a little bit of a break on the renovations in the subsequent years, but moving forward, a knowledgeable investor would know that a building originally built in 1913 has been renovated they aren't gonna factor in $23,000 years, which divided by 32 units is only 720 per unit. I just don't think that they would actually take that into consideration. If they didn't renovate, I would have included it, but they did. So I don't think an investor would either.
Nevertheless, you're just adjusting the repair minutes contrary to the normal way of stabilizing repair minutes. Well, what if it was a really low year, the previous year, and you say, well, okay, that's not normal because repair minutes you go usually long term.
Typically, yes, if it hasn't like been fixed up and then there would be a break, like a new building, the year after it's brand new is going to have like it's going to have really, really low repair and maintenance, but I wouldn't consider that in stabilizing in terms of coming up to an expense amount to come up with a possible sale price. I think $1,000 for a Reno 1913 is pretty conservative ultimately.
Yeah, that's a difference of opinion there. So that's all the questions I have on that.
Okay, any questions from the panel on the rebuttal, city's rebuttal?
None for me, thank you.
None for me, thank you.
All right, so then I guess that concludes 70 South Park. So then we'll go up to 88 South Park.
Okay, can I have a 2-minute break? The rest of these will be really quick. I just need a 2-minute break.
We'll have a short, very short break then.
Gentlemen. Okay.
All right. We will move onwards to 88 South Park Drive. So Mr. Brackus, you can proceed.
Thank you. File 22-1008, roll number 030630831188 South Park Drive. Assessed value, $6,076,000. It is to the west of the last property, right across from the property before. So right by the transitway there. 1972 effective year build, construction class D. We're close on NOI. I think we're about 75,000. Oh no, sorry, 7,500. No, $8,000 higher, which is about 2.6%. I'll go through it very quickly. 42 units, modeled valuation. It's got a 5.15 cap as per the model. For estimated market value or comparables are found on page 4. That falls within the range of the sales. Cap rate evidence on page 5. You've heard it enough today. I'm sure you don't want to hear it again. It's the bolt-on municipal act excerpts. And there's some pictures. So that we have on page 8, we have the actual reported income and expenses. So the most recent year, they're reporting $311,000 net operating income. We're at $312,909. So when just looking at the most recent year, we're pretty darn close. So I didn't make a change to the NOI. And then what pictures I could find online, round out my brief on the last couple pages. So it looks like they have had some stuff done, at least flooring wise. And the exterior looks to be in good condition as per the pictures. That's my evidence. Thank you.
All right, questions, Mr. Dupont?
So your NOI, 312,000, 8,000 higher than us, and you say you didn't change it, but you're not site specific though.
Well, I did look at the income and expenses on page 8. The most recent mailer shows that they're getting 311, so we're pretty darn close to their most recent mailer. And small disagreement on how you stabilize, but ultimately we're pretty close.
Okay, so you're compared to actual, so you're not doing any stabilization to come to your opinion.
No, I did review yours though, in considering our recommendation in the interim though.
Okay, it's all questions I have.
All right, Ian, any questions of the city?
No, I don't. Thank you.
No, none for me.
All right, and I have none, so you can proceed, Mr. Dupont.
I can go over our brief. You'll see the photos first page. You can skip to our income approach, which would be page 21. So you can see the line 1 potentials for and the refunds, and that's what we stabilize that for line 3. The big G5 shows the historical. We stabilize 4.2, which is the same rate as the assessor has used. Then we had parking. Then the expenses we stabilize normal way. We use the most recent year for insurance and utilities and caretaker, and taxes usually, unless we calculate it differently. Certain items we use 3 average, which is the line 16 and 17, and advertising also, as well as waste and snow, because that could be erratic, go up and down. So repair minutes, line 27, and we stabilize at 59,680. It says stabilize, and that's from the last page. As a remarks, it says 2020 BOR was formerly in 580. And for 2020 and prior, we did not have detail R&M. Now we have detail R&M 4 years from 2017, 2020. And the next page is the breakdown of repair maintenance. So you can see 2017, 18, 19. Top areas in red is the items we exclude. So we excluded the roof. expenses are stabilized. We don't stabilize anything for roof. Waste and snow shown separately. Sorry. Then the flooring replacement, we stabilize the actual, and it's only $19 per suite per year. And our maximum allowed is 500, so it's very low there. So we stabilize at the 5-year average for all the other items. And the only one we remove is actually the roof. So back to page 21. Our NOI comes 304. So part of that, the difference is the repairment site 27. There's 102, 19, 64, 39, 43. So they had years are reduced. And we stabilized the 5-year at the 5-year average. So that's the difference between the actuals and versus our stabilized. And we apply 5.5 cap. So it comes to 5 million value. And that's my report.
Okay, questions, Mr. Brackus?
Yeah, just on page 14, your workup. So it looks like we're about 8,000, 9,000 apart on NOI. Would you agree with that?
Yeah.
Okay, so then just to maybe simplify this, I don't have a problem with your repair and maintenance. Just looking at the vacancy, given that the historic vacancy average you had was 18,117, would an investor not put more weight on the actual performance of the property rather than just opting to go with the city's vacancy rate, which is about $9,000 higher, basically the difference in our NOI?
The actual vacancy for 2020 was 20,000. We're at 27, so 7,000 difference.
Okay.
From the actual the last year, and sometimes you have very low vacancy, 1 or 2% or 0%, and as an appraiser and as a purchaser, you always have to allow for vacancy, which tends to be at the market. Not quite often where we're actually is above market. We will still look at the 2-year average and we will normally go with a market vacancy.
Okay. Is there a higher demand for apartments around universities like the University of Manitoba? Because there's a student housing demand as well as normal pedestrian demand?
The University of Manitoba market is not a very good market. Students tend to move out, so there's a high turnover. When you come for renewal in September, a lot of these tenants will not renew. It will make for a higher turnover. And so that if you're owning an apartment, and you had a choice between a university student and somebody else, you would likely choose somebody else because they're not reliable tenants.
All right, those are my questions. Thank you.
Great. Any questions from the panel?
None for me, thank you.
I just have one with respect to your overhead picture on page 15. That depicts the 3 buildings surrounded by the blue border, and that area in the middle, that's a central green space. That area in the middle is accessible from all 3 buildings and is a common green space area. Is that right?
The map, page 15.
No, the picture on page 15.
Yeah, the aerial photo. Sorry, yeah.
Aerial photo, right?
Yeah, that's a lot. So they share there's not much of a green space there, but I guess they share the sidewalk and whatever green space they have there.
Okay, thank you.
All right, and I have no questions, so thank you very much for your presentations there. Then we will move on to our penultimate property of 50 South Park. Let me just pull up the files. All right, on 50 South Park Drive, you may start, Mr. Baracus.
Thank you. Just let me put a handle on this. Try to okay, so file number 22-2991, roll number 03063079 South Park Drive, assessed value 5,789,71. It's got a 1980 effective year built. It's in the same strip of land as the past three properties on this docket, so I'm not going to the area any further. They've been good with handing in their mailers. You can see on page 3, we've got our income and expense workup done by the model. And so that's how our valuation is calculated. You look at the rent comparables, you can see that falls within the range, right? The lower end, there are 5 bachelor units though in this property. That's something that would be considered. And you have the subject income and expense analysis. Basically, just they had a pretty detailed income and expense work up here. And so I just did a really quick, very simple revenue with stabilized management at 5%. Shows that the stabilized NOI and the modeled NOI are very close. I think the applicant and I are very close as well. I think we're about 3.5% apart on this one. So it is predominantly a capitalization rate issue. But he's got a more detailed stabilized workup than I do. So we can always comment on that there. Cap rate of this is the same. It's all modeled. And the pictures follow. At the end here, you can see looks like it's been refreshed on the inside, but nothing extensive. That's my evidence. Thank you.
All right, questions, Mr. DuPont?
So your workup page 5. So you show actuals. So your 2020, that would be actual vacancy. Then your stabilized repair and maintenance would be the 3-year average instead of a 5 years that we use, right? So what you did,
it looks like I used the actual 2020 instead of the average. I probably could have averaged it, but they're all relatively the same. Oh, sorry, I'm looking at management. I don't have a breakdown of the repair and maintenance I used. I would have just used the actual 2020 repair and maintenance. I was trying to get this together very quickly.
So your first line revenue, actual is 552, which is revenue from all sources, including vacancy. Is that correct? And you stabilize at 552.
552. Okay, so let me go to the income and expenses. That's inclusive of vacancy, collection loss, incentive, bonuses, etc.
Right. So you're not stabilizing vacancy specifically, or in essence, using whatever vacancy was available,
Yeah.
recorded in 2020. Now, the next line, operating expenses,
Mhm.
they were much higher, 294,000 in 2020. And then it was previously low, 238, 204, average 245. So you stabilize at 245. So that would include your repair and maintenance would be in that operating expense. You would have therefore done the repair and maintenance at 3-year average.
I just did a 3-year average. There may have been items that needed to have been removed from those operating expenses, but again, with time deadline, I just tried to take the actuals into consideration and still get my stuff and submit it in time.
And the 2020 actual NOI, it shows at bottom left of your page, at 238,000 was the actual.
Mm.
And you stabilized at 287 the way you did it, so much higher than the actual.
Well, I know they have mortgage interest, they have profit and loss. Oh, sorry, let me see here, on the wrong year. They've got 180 for profit and loss, and they've got interest expense, amortization expense as well in there.
Then your operating expense, you would have removed interest, mortgage, and depreciation, amortization.
Yeah, I would have gotten rid of that.
Right, so it's not an issue. The stabilized
Mhm.
NOI 238 would exclude those items. Oh no, sorry, the actual 238 from 2020 would exclude any of those other items.
Yes, it definitely should have. Yes, it would have. I would have not included them because doesn't line up with the number that they reported after calculating those into the equation.
Okay, that's all the questions I have.
Okay, Bob, any questions?
No, thank you.
Ian?
None for me, thank you.
All right, then Mr. Dupont, you can give your presentation then.
The first page is the photos and the maps. Then the spreadsheet for the revenue and expenses. You can skip to page 13. So we stabilize in normal way. We don't take the totals like Matt did, and we stabilize each individual item, which is a proper way of stabilizing. So one of the differences with the 3-year average, Matt would be stabilizing vacancy at 3-year average. Or no, sorry, he used the 2020 income. Line 13 is 551,709. He has 552. He would be including interest income. We exclude that, and Matt will likely agree that he's a bit off, a bit higher than normal because there's interest income which we exclude. So line 3, we stabilize the actual potential market rent after discounts. The rents are relatively high, but 1,002 per suite. Actual vacancies are 1.1, 1.7, 2.1. So the actual vacancy 11,000 for 2020. We stabilized at 22,000, which is the 4.2% market vacancy. So that would be one of the differences with Matt and I would be 11,000 in vacancy. Now, most of the other items we stabilize in normal way. Actuals for 2020 for some items. Others we use 3-year average. Except for repair maintenance, line 27. It says we stabilize at 1252, and that's shown on the next page. So we have the revenue, the expenses for the repair maintenance. We have 5 years. So the top of the lines, we exclude the extraordinary repairs, roof Waste and snow shown separately. So when we stabilize, there's no extraordinary repairs roof. Windows and door, we stabilize at 5-year average, unless they're really large amounts. And shows a rental, we would use the small amounts that we spend on the same as parking lot. We allow the 430. We would not allow a large full replacement of the parking lot. So we stabilize the rest of the items at the 5-year average, except for plumbing. We exclude the high gear 2019 16,000. So when we add up everything at the bottom is 1252 per suite. So that we would exclude one high plumbing, extraordinary repairs and roof. The rest would be a 5-year average. So back to the previous page. Repair and maintenance actually was quite high in 2020 and 97. We brought it down. And that will use a three-year average. So we would likely have been less than 3 average is shown on the next page. Before taking off capex, waste and snow was 87,500. I'm not too sure what Matt would have done, but he would probably have had higher repair. So our NOI is 11,000 less than the city. I would say most of that difference is in the vacancy. Well, no, they use 4.2% vacancy. Same as us. And we apply 5.5 cap, so that's my report.
Okay, questions, Mr. Baracus?
No questions, but I'll do a summation at the very end in regards to all the properties. Thank you.
Okay. Questions, Ian?
No, thank you.
None, thank you.
All right. Thank you for that. Then we will. I just one caveat, Mr. Baracus. Your summation at the end would have to be restricted to the Altus properties since.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah. Okay. Our last property then is 33 South Park. So let me just. Pull up those files. All right, you can begin on 33 South Park.
Okay, thank you. Just let me pull the applicants up so I can streamline my presentation. Thank you very much. Okay, thank you. So file 22-2990 03063090-100 is the PID on the property. So we've got an assessed value of $5,963,000. Again, the property is in the same area that we're looking at. Just looking at the applicant's map, it looks like it is also in that same strip that is west of Pembina. So it's the same region. We're familiar with it. 1970, 1980, effective year built. So looking ahead, we're very close in regards to our net operating income, so I'm not going to dwell on it too much. We're about, okay, so I think actually the applicant might be higher on this one. So our model valuation is on page 3, so it predominantly comes down to capitalization rate. Looking at the 2020 income and expense mailer in isolation, doing a very quick non-management adjusted without pulling out any potential expenses and, you know, perhaps income, small amounts of interest income that should be removed. It looks like we're pretty darn close. So I didn't make a change to the valuation. Our pictures are found at the end of the brief. You can see it looks like the interior is very similar to the last one. I believe it's the same owner. The applicant's NOI is slightly higher than ours. So it's a cap rate issue. And yeah, you guys have heard that enough today. That's my evidence.
Okay, questions, Henry?
No question.
Okay, any questions from the panel?
No, thank you.
All right, so Henry, on your presentation then.
Oh, I lost it now. Where is it? Oh, here it is. Okay. So if you go to the appendix page, I guess the page, our page is not numbered. The difference in effective income, if you look at Matt's, he's got the appendix numbered and ours doesn't, so that it's page 8, he has the revenue and expense. The bad debt shows up as an expense on the next page, 1170. And so that we bring that up on the income side, so that makes the difference. That would be the difference that we have. So our line 6 is shown there, and that's taken from the expense side. So when we have line 13, 557 for your 50 gross income, the math has got 559. He includes interest, which he agreed he should not, which was not a high amount. I believe it was 125. The only difference is that we use the bad debt also. So to me, the 557 that we have is quite accurate. So the vacancy actual was only 0.5%. We stabilized at 4.2. Repair and maintenance, 927. We stabilized along 55, and that's showing on the next page, page 22. We excluded extraordinary repairs on top and red and roof. Waste and so shown separately. We stabilized every other item at the 5-year average. There were no big items that we removed. So our NOI 933 is 302, slightly higher than the assessor 295. So then it comes down to cap rate difference. So we're 5.5% versus the assessor 4.95. Thank you. That's my submission.
Okay, questions, Mr. Brockus?
Yeah, just one question on page, on your workup on 14 of the PDF. Anyway, again, showing very low vacancy. Is there a waiting list to get into this property?
Well, I don't check that, so I wouldn't know.
Okay. Those are my questions. Thank you.
Okay, any questions, Ian?
No, I don't. Thank you.
Bob?
Thanks. No.
Okay, well, thank you very much. We have heard all the items scheduled at this time, and this hearing is now adjourned. So thank you for your presentations, Henry and Matt.
Can I just do a quick summation?
Oh, your summation, yes. Go
Right.
ahead.
Okay, so So basically for the properties on South Park, we're pretty close in terms of net operating income. Again, I didn't really question the expenses. What we've seen for all four properties presented, the properties presented on South Park, basically they've all had vacancy amounts that are below 4.2 year after year. I think a knowledgeable purchaser looking at it on a site-specific basis, knowing what the real neighborhood local vacancy is, would take the actuals into consideration more so than just going to the 4.2, which includes a much larger area. So if you look at the difference between the average vacancy and the subject stabilized in those properties where there's a difference, if you went with the actual vacancy, our NOIs are pretty much the same. So I think it's pretty much a cap rate if you follow that line of thought. That's my simple summation. Thank you.
Okay, Henry, simple summation.
Sure. Yeah, so it's fine that he agrees with our expenses. The vacancy, we use a market vacancy. He says neighborhood vacancy. I don't believe his report shows a neighborhood vacancy, or rather than the CMHC vacancy for that particular area. So we go with the CMHC area, or the assessor zone area. We don't know what they did, but that did not give any evidence on neighborhood vacancy. I believe we should go with the market vacancy that the assessor has, which is not disputed. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Now, again, to repeat, we have heard all items scheduled and this hearing is now adjourned. So thank you very much for your presentations, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Thank you.